Maturity is learning to walk away from people who threaten your peace of mind, self-respect, values, morals, and self-worth. By Unknown. Hi everyone, it's Tuesday! Way! Welcome to another brand new episode of the Toya Talks podcast. My name is, of course, Toya Washington, and every Tuesday we have a brand new episode. I have to also, before I start, I just be recording and producing content and giving you the tools and having honest and conversation in a safe space here that we have created here on the Toya Talks podcast. So you can imagine that as I was recording last week's episode, I didn't realize at that point of hitting the live button or scheduling the live that I was actually recording the 100th episode, which is a huge achievement, and I feel so proud. I don't know how I'm going to celebrate it, but I'm definitely going to celebrate it because it is a milestone. At no point when the Toya Talks podcast was launched did I allow myself to think of 100th episode. It's crazy. I don't know if you guys noticed this as well. If you go to the Toya Talks podcast, there is a season 1. And then obviously we have this season. And really what I should have actually called that, rather than season 1, I should have just called it the pilot. Because I think for me, it was part of my anxiety. And we're going to talk about that as well. Not knowing or not trusting in my ancestors. And I was still developing a relationship with my ancestors. So not trusting them enough that this was not only my purpose and my calling, but this was the right path to follow in terms of the Toya Talks podcast and brand. And we are 100 episodes in, and January the 1st marks 2 years. 2 years! Can you imagine? I know where I was when the Toya Talks podcast went live. I was actually in Miami. Kay and I had spent that Christmas in Miami, and then New Year's. Now, don't get excited, oh my God, honey, you styling and wilding. I really did not enjoy Miami. It's not like you see in the movies. But that's a story for another episode. And I remember announcing that I was going to do a podcast, and the feedback was absolutely amazing. My DMs were flooded. And it was me coming out of my comfort zone as well. Snapchat had always been the comfort zone for me because Snapchat gave birth to Toya Talks, and those who know. And I love the fact that it only lasted 24 hours and that was it. But then I understood the significance of the Toya Talks platform, and that people needed an opportunity to go back and re-listen, to really hear me speak about the things I had been through in the world of work, and how I was learning from my mistakes, and how my past experiences had shaped me and what those experiences were. So the natural progression to a podcast was something that I was unsure about. And it was a commitment that I had to make as well to learning a new creative craft. And I knew that I wanted to keep everything in-house, and I wanted to understand how to edit, how to mix, and at the time, the mic I was using wasn't the best mic in the world because it was actually the laptop mic, and then I progressed to an actual mic. And every time there was a elevation through a progression of an investment of something to do with the podcast, I saw it as me investing into my craft, but also giving respect to the craft of creativity that is the podcast. And here we are almost 2 years later. And not only do I have an amazing, spanking, just fantabulous microphone, I fully understand how to mix and master episode, but equally as well, I am putting out content of value, and that is what I wanted to do. Black women, this is a sisterhood. We are Black women navigating the world of work and life, but also we get to congregate here. So even if you don't come every Tuesday, at some point you come here. And I'm hoping that I'm nourishing your soul and I'm feeding into your soul. And sometimes we have really difficult conversations, and sometimes, we talk the things. And in those difficult conversations gives birth to knowledge, learning, and more importantly, to growth. And there is something to be said about being honest with yourself. Listen, You can fake it outside. You can go out there and pretend to be whatever, whoever you want. But there comes a point where you have to sit within yourself, and you have to sit with yourself and the reality of decisions that you have made, or decisions that you should have made, or whatever it is that relates to your career and life. At some point you have to sit within yourself and reconcile with your decisions, your inactions or actions. Yeah. So this episode is more based on a dilemma that I received, and it is very reminiscent of the season in which we are. So I want to give that context as well. But before we do that, you know how we do, and you know how we start. We have to talk about the things that have been happening in the week. And first of all, can we talk about Tristan Thompson for a very short minute? And the reason I said very short is because Tristan Thompson is not even the gift that keeps on giving. What he is a person who is committed to humiliating Khloe Kardashian. And I say he humiliates her because he forces her to look at the decisions she makes that accommodates his behaviour. And I do think there's an episode to be had about, as women, why we think that we should be taking back men who show us no respect, albeit in this instance through cheating. Now, they are going through, Tristan Thompson cheated with a trainer, and I'm assuming this was a trainer that he used, but they weren't training honey. Honey, they were ducking and diving, dipping it low and spreading it wide, honey. But to that end, I do feel like, he can't explain this away, especially if the paternity results come back and he is the father, because that is evidence that not only did he cheat on Khloe Kardashian, he had a whole child on her. And everyone's talking about Jordan Woods and, Khloe should apologise. But how can Khloe apologise to Jordan Woods when Khloe can't even apologise to herself? And when I say apologise to herself, she needs to learn to forgive herself for making decisions that not only compromise her and her integrity, what is it about this toxic situation with Tristan that has her thinking that it's an acceptable situation for her to be in? And then the worst part of it is she lashes out. She talks about keeping her family together. Darling, you and Tristan aren't a family. You created a beautiful daughter, but that doesn't necessarily make you family. And in fact, if you guys are family, then clearly he doesn't respect the family. And there comes a point where, as a woman, I'm just expecting her to employ some self-respect, because she is raising a young queen, and she needs to set the standard and the boundaries of what to accept. And I can't help but feel like if Khloe Kardashian was confident in herself and her self-esteem was as such where she would set boundaries, and if they were breached there would be consequences, I doubt very much that Tristan would feel comfortable enough to cheat on her with her sister's friend and still feel as though not only is there no consequence, but still feel entitled. And there's an entitlement that comes from a man who cheats and still thinks that he deserves to have the same family he cheated on. There's an entitlement, and it's born out of arrogance, and it's born out of selfishness. Me personally, I will never judge anybody for taking back a cheater, and don't ever get it twisted. I'm not judging Khloe Kardashian. What I am saying is, where is the self in self-respect? Because there comes a point whereby it's not even about judgment. It's about why is it that you think that you deserve this level of mistreatment? Where is your self-esteem? How far in the gutter is your self-esteem where you think that it's healthy for you to be treated in the way you have been? And at the end of the day, you know what they say, you lose them how you gain them. When his so he has a son, and the lady that was pregnant with his son, she was pregnant at that time. Khloe Kardashian was having a relationship with Tristan, while this woman was thinking she was in a relationship with Tristan, pregnant with his child. So what is it about you, Khloe, that thought you exempt from that same treatment? He's just done the exact same thing. He's done the exact same thing. You may not be the one that's pregnant, but he cheated on you, and he has created a child with somebody else. And there comes a point, Khloe, whereby you have to take a step back and realise that what it is that you think you're fighting for, he don't want it, honey. He doesn't want it. Everybody's now likening Tristan Thompson to what's his name? Future. And someone else. I can't remember who the other person is. Somebody who obviously keeps procreating. But the point is this. There are women who accept the way Tristan acts as a standard and they're happy with that. And partly because they want to have another child with him and they don't want to have multiple baby fathers. And I know baby father, baby mother is not necessarily the ideal word to use here. But there comes a point where you have to understand that you're setting an example for these children in which they learn how to, number one, treat people, but two, what to accept as good treatment. And I definitely feel as though Chloe hasn't always had it easy, and I think being in the shadow, often earlier on in her career, being in the shadow of her sisters, Courtney and Kim, hasn't necessarily been easy, but she's really come into her own. But what this also demonstrates is you can have all the money in the world, but if you're not happy within yourself, yeah, it will come out in the decisions you make. If Khloe Kardashian was really happy within herself, why would you want to be with a man that would leave a woman he's in a relationship with 8.5 months pregnant to be with you? What is it about your vagina that you think is so amazing that a man won't do it to you? Then secondly, he's cheated on you multiple times, and then he decided to cheat where you shit, yeah, with your sister's best friend, and yet you think that everyone else is the problem, everyone's trying to break up your family. Honey, he's got a sledgehammer and he said he's gonna backass the whole thing, backass everything. Now this man has another child, and the trainer that had his kid has given the child his last name. She ain't even waiting for them DNA results. That's a woman that knows what the result gonna be, honey, because she know who she slept with and she know who the father of her child is. Chloe, what's all this? One of my friends, she said, what you allow will continue. And that was my friend Vanessa. And it's true. What you allow will continue, because if you've given permission or given excuses for someone's bad behaviour, then those are the same excuses they're going to use to repeat that offence and repeat that behaviour. As far as I'm concerned, I have rules of engagement. If that boundary is crossed, I'm not going to allow you to continue. Because if I allow you to continue, that behaviour will continue. I'm not here for that. I'm a strict liability person. I tell you that on period. People make mistakes, but I don't see how you can accidentally slip your penis into someone's vagina, ejaculate and make a child. That ain't no accident, honey. You did that deliberately. So after Prince William's speech, and we spoke about that last week in last week's episode, about the rising population in Africa actually being the reason for destroying wildlife in the continent of Africa, which is crazy to me. COVID has now... Listen, COVID is the most racist virus I have ever heard of, honey. The most racist. This Omicron variant that they're now saying started in South Africa, that they're now saying is in... Well, at the point of last week, it was in 6 African countries, allegedly. Now this Omicron has now placed a lot of African countries on the red list because of the rising cases of this particular variant. Now, what I'm not understanding is recent reports came out to say, actually, the variant actually started in the UK. Yes, we had the numbers, the first identification of Omicron in this country, but the identification and alert that went to the World Health Agency actually came from scientists in South Africa, but nobody wants to have that conversation. And it's just crazy to me, you know, this is what I'm saying. The colonizers' ancestors, William started his bullshit, then I can see that the colonizers' ancestors have carried on, and I'm trying to figure out whether this whole... Okay, I do believe that the Omicron variant exists, okay? But what they have said is that it's so highly transmissible that whether you've been double vaxxed or whether you've had the booster or whatever, you can still catch it. But yet they're still pushing this vaccine and booster agenda. Okay, cool. Well, not cool. But then what I'm not understanding is you're pushing the whole vaccination, whatever, but you've already admitted that actually, whether you've taken the vaccine or not, if you're coming from any of the red list African countries, you still have to do a PCR and you still have to isolate. In fact, you have to go to one of their COVID hotels, and it's about £2,000 all in, because I think you have to self-isolate for like 7 days or something, and you have to pay for all your testing. And I just, listen, I'm without words, because we all know Dirty December is cancelled. So I was watching House of Gucci at the cinema when my friend messaged me, and she was like, Toya, Dirty December is cancelled. Homegirl is in Nigeria trying to figure out how she's going to come back. So my friend, I said to her, listen, you need to set up a GoFundMe, because that's the only way you're paying for that hotel, baby. Because we all know you're not going to pay that money. She said, well, she's got a work laptop. If she has to work from Nigeria, fine. And I think the uncertainty of not knowing how long these countries are going to remain on the red list. Now, despite the rise in the Omicron variant in other countries, the actual red list is very black. We have Nigeria on there. We've got Zambia, South Africa. We've got all, and the list continues to grow, but they all happen to be all countries in Africa. So I'm just wondering if William has anything to do with that list. But there was a tweet that I saw from Craig_A_Spencer. Craig Spencer is an MD and MPH in the States, and he tweeted, It's now clear Omicron was already circulating in the US weeks ago, before it was identified in South Africa and travel bans were instituted. What's less clear is why the punitive and purposeless travel bans are still in place. Rescind them and thank the South African scientists. But that's the point, isn't it? The UK are not going to thank Africa for anything. They can't thank Africa for anything they haven't stolen, and even then they're not thanking them. They're just taking what they can steal and put in the museum and making a profit out of it. But if you think that the UK are really going to admit that this Omicron, they got it wrong. In fact, it wasn't first identified in South Africa. You're highly mistaken. And at the time this was tweeted, it was identified that it actually originated here in the UK. You see, let it not go above your head how racism is being pushed through this pandemic. Don't let that go above your head. There is something to be said about the time of year and the timing of all of this. Now, if they placed other countries on that travel ban, there would be anarchy in this country. And it would be anarchy because people are fundamentally preparing to travel for Christmas. Now, I don't know what investment Boris has in Christmas, but Boris ain't cancelling Christmas for nobody. He don't care. As he says, bodies line up on the streets. He don't give a shit. He don't care. All Boris cares about is the optics and how he looks. All he cares about is the optics, how it looks, and the economy. That is all he cares about. But be under no illusion. I called this ages ago in my Instagram, and I said this. There will be a lockdown. The rising cases of COVID are rising exponentially. Therefore, he needs to be seen as though he's trying to, he's put certain countries on the red list, he's reinstated masks, this, that, and the third. He will not cancel Christmas because supply chain, there's not enough turkeys anyway. He ain't trying to piss no one off. We've already had a fuel shortage. He knows everyone done piss off. So what he's going to do is he'll allow you to have Christmas, and then he'll blame you for why he has to lock the country down because you wasn't responsible during Christmas to put your masks on, be careful, and keep at a safe distance. All the things he told you not to do, all the things he lifted, he's going to blame you for the rise. That's what he's going to do, because this is all about optics and playing the political game, and yet they're still pushing that booster. So you know what he needs to do? He needs to boost himself with some common sense, because that man is crazy. The Prime Minister of the UK, in my humble opinion, his decisions make no sense. They make none. And now they're also saying that if you do not wear masks in public places like the train or whatever, they can charge you £200 for your refusal to wear a mask. So anyhow you want to cut this and slice it and dice it, this government is making money from this pandemic. If it's not the COVID hotels, it's the, penalties for masks. If it's not that, then if you drive here, you're paying congestion. Listen, it's just very expensive to breathe, okay? I've already collected 2 parking tickets. You know what, that's got nothing to do with it. But I'm just feeling very salty about it. But I do want people to take this in the spirit in which I'm saying, insofar as you need to get ready and be steady. Okay, I do think that there is something to be said about learning the lessons of last year, and I've continued to say this, and understanding that I do think that there is to an extent learning to live with COVID, but this is not the last of the strains and the variants. There are going to be several lockdowns before we get into a stable position of vaccination and the development of vaccination and understanding this virus. And to be honest with you, it's actually quite scary. It's scary that it's the same NHS that Boris forgot about how instrumental they were and have been through the pandemic, that he only wanted to give them a 3% increase pay rise. And now it seems that COVID cases are rising, and he will have to rely again on the NHS, the very NHS that we have continued to rely on. And he quite possibly will tell us to stand up and clap for them. People in the NHS don't want no claps. They want recognition. They want better treatment, and they want better working conditions. Let's not even get into that, because I'm very, very passionate about that. Anyway, so before we even move on, I don't know why people do not know how to be new in workplaces. What is it about starting somewhere new and people not understanding how to be new? And I've spoken about this several times before, various episodes, various examples of things that I have encountered where I work. And I'm not sure whether, I don't know what it is, but I feel like the middle class white men, especially when they're from up north where I work, they come with this displaced arrogance and this big dick energy that makes no sense. Some of them, I know when they're on violence. Do you know when they're on violence? It's when they're coming on, listen, we're all remote working, yeah, on my where I work. So I don't understand this violence of coming on calls. Everyone's got their camera on, or off, sorry. Everyone's got their camera off. You have to switch yours on. So already we know that crud is arriving. And then you're wearing a suit. Your collar, your shirt collar is ironed so well while all of us are wearing jumpers. You know when they come on like that, they're on crud. They're on crud. They're coming with that takeover spirit. Them shoulder pads and them suit jackets are high. And there is, so we've got a couple of new people in the team. Now, I'm one of the longest serving consultants on the team. Yeah? And even we need to get into all of that as well, but we get into that in a little bit. But when someone starts new, my boss always sends an email, and she introduces the person and tells the person, you need to go and introduce yourself to these people. And there was a particular guy, and we're gonna call him, what are we gonna call him? Let's call him Jackson. So Jackson's been having meetings with people, and word on the street is that Jackson is a bit much. And for me, I give people opportunity to take opportunity. Okay, I give you opportunity to show me who you are. But I already seen in the team meetings, you're a bit much. Like, why are you giving your opinion? You've been here for 2 hours. I don't understand. But anyway, that's people. So Jackson put some time in my diary. He asked me what time I was available. I gave him the time. And unfortunately, I missed the meeting. And that was because I had a really bad migraine. So I had to take the morning off. And I completely forgot to tell him. I mean, why would I even remember? He's been on the team for, at that point, 2 days. I'm not going to remember that. Maybe I should have gone through my calendar. Whatever. Shit happens. So when in the morning, or no, later that evening, I saw his email and he said, oh, hi, Toya. We seem to have missed each other. No, you weren't. I didn't miss you. I stood you up. Let's be honest. I call it what it is. I'm going to put this in for reschedule for tomorrow. That's very presumptuous. Whatever. I just accepted it. So then the next day, went to the meeting on Teams. And Jackson introduced himself. Listen, the title that he gave himself, it had every letter in the alphabet. I was confused. I till this day, I still don't know what his job title. I don't understand. And the thing is, in our team, we're all senior. But there are some people who are more senior than others. But you'll know that. Do you understand? If you do your due diligence in the team, you'll see it. But we don't... It's weird because it's without saying, you know who the juniors are. Do you understand? And my boss has done that very, very well. Insofar as to a degree, and I guess as a shop front, you might think we're a flat structure. But it just happens to be the longest serving are more senior because we've had more experience, and that's just, on the project, and that's just how it goes. Anyway, so he's already decided he's a senior. Now, what's unique about this particular guy is he's worked in the organisation already. He already works there, but he worked for a completely different function that had been disbanded. So as soon as I heard about that, I understood why he irons the collars of his shirt. And he needs them to be sharp, because that's how he's going to use the sharpness of his shirt to cut people's job so he can take the job. Let's be honest. He's cruising for a position because his team has been disbanded. And in fact, if he can't find a role within this team, then he'll be asked to leave. Let's be honest. That's what it is. So this is why I said it's good to keep your ear to the ground. So people were already talking. I'd go into calls and someone would be like, oh my God, who's met Jackson? And, like little throwaway comments. And I'm that person that I just listen. I don't have an opinion. I don't give an opinion. My boss says I'm too PC. That's what she says. And it's not about being PC. For me, it's about understanding the environment you work in and knowing the role you play in the environment. But equally, I'm not a chatty patty. There's people that you get on with, you have a bit of a gossip or whatever. But for the wider team, I'm no chatty patty. Do you understand? So anyway, I'm in the call now, and I'm not even going to lie to you. That 20 minutes was an interrogation. This man said to me, after introducing himself and all his alphabetical job titles or whatever, he now says to me, I want to know who, this particular person, are they senior? How long have they been here? What do they do? And I said, excuse me, if you want to know about Michael, James, and whoever, you need to go and speak to them. It's not my place to tell you what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. That's a matter for you and them. He said, well, I know that you work on so-and-so contract, so I want to understand where my place is. So will I be working on your contract? Where would I sit within your... He goes, because I'm realising that you've got a little mini team in a team, and that you're leading that team. So I said, let me stop you right there. I said, first of all, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm leading my team. I would say I'm more senior because I've been here the longest in my particular area. However, I have an alternate who I have trained to a level whereby if I'm not in, or for example, when I was sick yesterday, my alternate can pick up the slack. I have junior people that I work with that are training to be seniors, and we all pull our weight. And as far as I'm concerned, we are a team, we're collaborative, and there is no other vacancy or there's no seat in terms of this particular contract. As far as I'm concerned, we're resourced up. So if you are looking for where to sit, unfortunately, there's no seats here. And I'm quite happy to communicate that to Deborah, if that is a conversation that you have, suggested to her. So he went quiet. And he said, oh, so what would need to happen for me to come and work on that particular contract? I said, nothing. You're not working on the contract. Now, I had to push back quite firmly, and I'll tell you the reason why. Them shoulder pads came with takeover spirit. And the thing is with takeover spirit, you have to let takeover spirit know that there's nothing to take over. Because as far as I'm concerned, I've worked too damn hard for this obnoxiously arrogant white middle class man to think that he can come and take over my contract because he sees it as his God-given rights because he was born with white privilege. That's not going to operate. It doesn't operate with me. And one thing with me is when I'm talking, I'm so calm. Because what I have to say needs to land. And it needs to land so you know it's landed. Then he started asking me about some of the directors. Because he said that he has to do a site visit to one of the, based on one of the contracts or whatever, he has to do a site visit. Now I had it on reasonable, what do you call it? I had it on reasonable, whatever the word is, that no one asked him to do the site visit. He just injected himself. And the thing is, some people in my team are just too polite to tell people to F off. So there's somebody very senior, it's like a very senior director going to the site visit. So he said to me, what is he like? Like, ask you really. And I said, listen, I'm not part of that contract, so I don't understand. I said, why don't you speak to the senior commercial contract consultant and table your concerns or your questions to them? Because what I feel like this was an opportunity for Deborah to get you to meet some of are key players in the team, and to find out what we do and what we, but it seems that you've come with your own agenda, because I can see you've got a notepad there with probably a list of questions, and fair enough, have all your questions, but I don't actually have the time or the capacity or the bandwidth. Can you see all these Oyinbo words that people have been teaching me? Capacity and bandwidth to have this type of conversation outside of, hi, this is who I am. And I think I've done that. And he didn't know what to say. He was like, so if I had any more questions, and I said, if you had any more questions, I would hope that you could go to Deborah and have that conversation. He said, okay. So should we leave it there? I said, I think we definitely should leave it there. I've had these experiences with these white middle class guys, and in the most of this year, I've explained to you my interactions, the things that I've been through. So I know the signs of the takeover spirit before you switched on that camera. Before you switch on that camera, how you carry yourself is based on the things that you're saying. And I don't want this to go above your head, because just because he's a white middle class man doesn't mean as black women we shouldn't learn from that, because some of us come with that type of energy. And the problem is, when a white man comes with that type of energy, it's seen as him taking an interest. It's seen as him being inquisitive. When a black woman comes with that type of energy, it's seen as being pushy, being aggressive, being forceful, quite negative words. But if you were to use those words for a white man, the spin on it is, oh, he's just doing what a new person would do. We as black women don't have the luxury of coming across like that and thinking that it will be warmly accepted or appreciated, because usually that type of attitude comes with us then developing a target on our back. And this is what I say to you, and I have always said, doing your due diligence doesn't always require you to speak. Be polite, please, be on your P's and Q's, and, be polite, be professional without being pushy. You see, the greatest things that you can gain are from the things that you observe. I go into organisations and they think I don't talk. They don't think, you understand? And then when I do talk, you can see this confusion. Oh, so she's not stupid. Oh, so she knows what's going on here. No, I'm just sitting here with my eyes open and my mind closed. Of course I'm here and I'm consciously aware of what's happening. When I started this particular contract, you guys know how it all started. It's on various episodes. But for at least the first month or two, I barely spoke. And when I did speak, it was because I was asked directly about my commercial view. And sometimes it was very difficult to have a view because I didn't really understand the landscape. So sometimes what I would say is, I'm going to take this offline. You see, all this lingo, bandwidth, capacity, offline, all these words are words that obviously are part of my vocab, but have been part of my active vocabulary because we're in a pandemic. And then I'm being more attentive to the language people are using, and I'm picking up that vocab and then I'm using it when it suits me. So when I was new, people are basically, it's almost like sometimes I felt like I was being tested. As a new person, especially as a black woman, we are often tested, aren't we? Because it's almost like they don't believe what's on the CV. You hired me based on my CV, based on my experience, but yet you're trying to test me. And I think people fail, and I hate the word fail, that F word that I don't like. But for the purposes of this conversation, people tend to fail because they're too busy trying to feel that they need to fill in the gaps of silence. Sometimes filling in the gaps of silence could force you to say something that is inaccurate, untrue, and make you look stupid, rather than take the professional line and say, do you know what? I've just made a note of that. I'm going to take this as an action. I'll take this offline. Full stop. What's someone going to say to you then? No, you have to put it online. I can't. I've got to take it online. Offline. I've got to take it offline. I can't be on the line all the time. I can't. And I definitely will go as far as saying that the rules of a new joiner or a new starter is very different for black women than it is for non-black women or non-black men. It's completely different. You see, we don't have a second chance to make a first impression. we literally make the first impression, and that's what's engraved in people's minds. And I've always said that as part of my due diligence, I'm always thinking about how I can make quick wins. What do I mean by quick wins? What is it that I can achieve quite quickly with minimal effort that can make an impact, and people hear my name and it leaves an impression, a positive impression? That's how I approach my due diligence. So that means in order for me to get a quick win, I have to be able to do my due diligence in such a way that I am observing. And if I have questions, that's fine, but they're questions rather than try to come in and be solution based. Some situations in organizations are not necessarily looking for an immediate solution. They're looking for a diagnostic. They want you to come in and diagnose the issue. When you're doing a diagnostic, you can't be talking at the same time. And if you are talking, it's asking questions to build on your due diligence and allow you to then establish and understand. Ask questions for understanding and due diligence rather than ask questions to fill in gaps of silence. Because this guy has come into the organization, come into our team, thinking that there's a problem that he needs to solutionize. And what he's not realizing is no one's asking you for a solution. And the reason why he feels like he has to find a solution to whatever he thinks is the problem is because his previous team got disbanded. So he's trying to find a space. He's trying to find a space. And someone like that is dangerous. Because what he will do is he will go and canvass opinion, make assumptions, discredit people or discredit someone, and then try and make a way for himself to fill in someone's role. Even though he's probably ill-equipped, ill-advised, lacks experience, but the confidence it takes to go into a team after yours has been disbanded and think that you can interrogate yourself to information in order for you to have the upper hand to rock a team so that you can find a space is very toxic and it's very dangerous. And it smells and stinks of entitlement. It smells and stinks of arrogance. But some of you adopt that type of behavior, and then you are confused when you are labeled pushy, when you are then labeled anything. But then I ask, where is the accountability on your side? Did you do your due diligence in such a way that you were able to understand the lay of the land, understand where the issues are, who are the troublemakers, who are the key performers? How does this organization actually operate? How does this particular head of department, head of service, how does this person manage? And the only way to see it is that during team meetings. Listen, I work in a team that during team meetings, no one puts their camera on. No one. And do you know why no one puts their camera on? It's not to be rude. It's that people are doing work as they've attended that team meeting because the sheer volume of work that we have to do. Now, depending on the mood of the team, sometimes one or two may switch their camera on and before you know it, everybody's followed suit. That means it's not a bad week. Where people generally are having a good week. This is a team that actually bands together and they work really, really well together. But they're under a lot of pressure. So how can I add value to a team that is in a situation where they're overrun with work? That's what this man needs to be thinking. But instead, he's carrying his notepad, his big biro, and his sharp collar, and he's actually trying to rock it. How can you question what does this particular, like, we've got all different types of consultants, right? And then you're questioning, oh, because I was in a team meeting and I heard that he was asking a lot of questions. Well, that's a team meeting. That's the opportunity to ask those questions. Why does this particular man see a problem in that? Do you know why? He needs to find a problem so that he can find a solution, and he thinks he's the solution. Some of you are going into organizations thinking you're the solution. No, you're not the solution, because these people have been having problems before you got there. Your job is to find out what the problems are, where they sit, and how they originated. How does this organization or this team that I'm about to be a part of, how do I fit into this team? How? Sometimes you may not fit into a team, you know, because I've worked at organizations where I don't necessarily fit in, but the skills that I bring enhances it. So it's not about whether I have to fit in. Sorry, I forgot I had a Tesco's order, so I literally had to rush out well, rush to the intercom, let them in. I'm bloody out of breath, Jesus. Wow. I haven't even put my shopping away. But nothing that can't keep. You know what, it's funny because the guy that, delivery guy that dropped off my shopping, I said to him, oh, is there any substitutes? He says, oh, you'll have to check your email because they're not allowing us to give out receipts in the same way that we did in paper form. So I said, well, how am I supposed to know if there was, a replacement of something that had run out? He says, well, they're doing it to save paper. I said, so let me get this right. They're doing it to save paper. They're not giving bag again to save bag. What's going to be left? I said, the way things are happening, maybe you'll just empty the packets of rice and just throw the rice at us. Yeah, because me, I don't understand. To that end as well, you guys know what I think about the whole Christmas party. And I don't typically go to Christmas parties. This is a really unique situation in that I've been remote working since April. I've been remote working since March. I started this contract in October. So I've been remote working for this particular contract since October. And, everyone that we work with in the team, like the team has evolved, people have left and things like that. But we've never met each other. And yet we kind of know how each other work is. It's actually quite incredible. Like you get to know people based on the way they work because you're remote. And actually you almost form bonds in a way because you're brought together by the fact that you work in a particular place, but you're forced to know each other on a different level in a way that you wouldn't do if you were face to face in the office, right? Because you're seeing people's facial expressions. You're seeing most people from the neck up or from the shoulder up. You can't see kind of body language. So anyway, I say this to say, when my boss raised the fact that we should have like not a Christmas party per se, but she said like Christmas drinks and maybe go for dinner. I was like, you know what? I'd do that. Because I think there's something to be said about then kind of doing my due diligence again, like almost starting again, but from a point of kind of seeing people physically. And I wanted to also see how the team would interact. Would we all get on better face to face as we do remotely? And the reason I get on well with my whole team is because I can close this laptop. Even today, someone pissed me off. So I came off mute, answered the question. They asked me the same question in a different way. I just stayed off mute. And someone said, oh, I think Toya's answered. Yeah, sometimes silence will allow people to know that the answer arrived before. I'm not in the habit of repeating myself because you're trying to catch me out. Because you seem to think that you should be a contract manager, but you don't even have any credentials that will allow you to do that. But yet you're asking me to repeat myself by asking me a question in a different way. Trying to unsettle me or poke holes in my answer. Like, listen, I didn't grow in this and I'm not new to this. I qualified in this. And that's the difference, okay? Anyway, I digress. So anyway, because of this Omicron variant, the decision's been made that no, we can't like meet up for Christmas. In fact, if we want to do it, we have to do it in our own time. And me personally, I'm not giving up my own time to meet people. If you want me to give up my working day, that's great because you can still pay me my day rate for the day. That's how I operate in my mind, honey. Like, anyway. But to that end, I know that a lot of organisations are having Christmas, and you guys know my position on Christmas parties. But for those of you who do not, let me be clear. You are still working. Christmas parties is not an opportunity for you to remove your professional armour. It's an opportunity for you to continue due diligence while watching other people intoxicated and incapable of pacing themselves with alcohol. Now, I don't drink, but if you do drink, just be mindful of the fact that you're still at work. You will be judged by how you consume alcohol and what flows through your consumption of alcohol, especially as a black person and especially as a black woman. Yeah? We do not work to the same rules as our non-black counterparts. Being a black woman and working whilst black comes with a whole different set of rules. And we know this. We're not new to this. We understand this. This is why we come and congregate every Tuesday or whatever day you listen to the podcast. We have these chats. And I want you to understand that getting belligerently drunk doesn't mean that you're going to fit in anymore, especially in a workplace that maybe you don't literally fit in. Alcohol will not bring you closer to success in a workplace. I'm just letting you know. I also want to let you know that your manager is not your best friend. And just because everyone's being really, really nice doesn't mean they like you. It doesn't operate like that. for me, when I used to go to Christmas parties, especially when I was a perm, because let's say when I was a contractor, because I'm not getting paid my day rate to go to your Christmas party, but when I was a perm and I was going to these Christmas parties, I would be the person that sits in the corner and I'm taking pictures and I'm recording shit. That's what I'm doing. And I'm not obvious about it, but I'm that person. I was that person. And then when I matured, I realised I don't need to take pictures and all of that. Because what I used to do is then wind them up. When we'd go back to the office, I used to wind them up. Yes, I did, because they would forget what they were doing. But then I realised that put me in a really bad situation, because some people do not want to be remembered for their tomfoolery. They don't want to be remembered for being disgraceful or displaying disgraceful behaviour. And me reminding them is like me being like the office whistleblower. Nobody wants an obvious whistleblower. So as I matured and I understood the dynamics of, Christmas parties, my memory is very photographic anyway, and I would literally observe interactions. Do you know how many people were having affairs in different organisations I was working at, and I would be able to see it at the Christmas party? Yeah. And there was this one manager, he always used to cup this woman's bum. The way he was cupping that bum, I said, my dear, this is a hand that's been here before. Yeah. And what happened? We found out that they were shagging. And then she announced a few months later that she was pregnant. Who the daddy, honey? Where Maury at? Where is Maury, honey? Because I need to know her husband is not the father of that baby, honey. The dates do not make sense, honey. That Christmas party was around the time you slammed them in the bed. Yeah. So let's talk. Let's get into the flesh of this episode. So I've been getting quite a few emails about resignations, resigning, and there was this one email that has stuck out to me because this young lady has reached out to me about a separate issue, and she's really lovely, and you can see it through the emails and things, but she's a bit, uncertain about kind of, I think what it is she wants to be able to resign and leave a workplace and it just be peaceful. And the reality is that, and I think even more so now, like after the back of the lockdown, I think that a lot of organisations have been quite aggressive insofar as people have understood that this is a employee consultant market. The commercial space in certain sectors has become a fertile ground of new roles and employment. Yeah. So what that means is people have had opportunities to spend time with themselves, sit with themselves. A lot of us have worked remotely. For those who haven't, you've still seen the workplace change, in terms of opportunities. And I think we've seen a shift in society where we're speaking a lot more openly about money, about opportunities, and also about work environment and the type of environment you want to work in. So that means that a lot of people, and I've seen an increase in purchases of the negotiation masterclass and of the interview skills masterclass, and that tells me that number one, a lot of people have bought the CV masterclass, so therefore have seen the natural progression into an interview masterclass. But equally, people are purchasing the interview skills masterclass and the negotiation masterclass because a lot of people are having interviews and they are getting them placing themselves in positions where they're being offered roles, and they want to understand how to maximize the offer that they've been offered for a particular role. So I've seen it from that perspective, but also as well the season in which we're in. So I'm just going to give you the heads up for those of you who maybe do not know. And don't get me wrong, I'm saying this quite as a blanket, but, high level, right? If you're looking for a job, the best time to look for a job is probably mid-January, end of January, yeah? And then that window is about, I'd say, between mid to end of January until the end of Feb, early March. After early March, it's probably a little bit more difficult in the job market because we have the financial year that cuts off on the 5th of April. And what happens is 5th of April, new financial year, organisations and companies are getting new budgets. Now, this is providing that organisation financial year starts 5th of April, by the way. So it's relative, obviously, to the organisation. But remember I said high level in general. So around this time, for example, is probably, and today's date is actually the 6th of December. So you've got about another week and a half, right? After a week and a half is probably not good to start looking for a role, because a lot of people, they're winding down for Christmas. From a contractor perspective, I think all year round is great, but I think from a fixed term perspective and also from a perm perspective, but do you know what, I take that back. From a contractor perspective, it kind of operates the same, but you might get a flash role that comes out because someone's really desperate for a short piece of work, right? But in general, so let's talk on general terms, I would say you've got about a week and a half left, whereby if you're going to find a job or have interviews, fine. But after that time, people start winding down, people become unavailable, and people start disbanding, right? As they go on annual leave. And people take their annual leave up into the new year. So what we're saying is, even if you were going for job interviews and things, even if you did hear back and you were offered, you probably won't start until maybe end of the first week, early second week of January. So to that end, when people are leaving roles, around this period would be when they start to hand in their resignation for a January start, because you're not necessarily going to start a new job in December. Now, I have done that once, and it was really weird and awkward because I then got interviewed. I then got invited to Christmas parties. I didn't know anyone. So I've taken that lesson in that if I am interviewing in December, I will always push for a January start. Yeah? And in the same way, when people are resigning, they resign around, I'd say, 2 weeks before the end of November and then part of December. Yeah? To start in January. So it works both ways, is what I'm trying to say. Hopefully I'm not sounding too confusing. So this young lady sent me an email, and I will read the email. She says, "Hi Toya, I hope you're well." And she's in the subject line, she called it time sensitive resignation, boss delay in meeting. She says, "Hi Toya, I hope you're well. I was planning on handing in my resignation today and came into the office solely for that purpose. I asked my manager for a chat and she asked if it can be in person or on the phone. I advised in person. I have never requested an in-person meeting before, so I feel she knows I'm intending on resigning. She initially said we could meet at 4 p.m. today, but as she is coughing, her boss said she should go home when her meetings are done. I do have training today and tomorrow, and she advised that we can speak tomorrow at 4 p.m. after my last day of training. This feels off to me for some reason. Shall I just send my resignation over email?" So let me tell you what this young lady's first mistake is. Why do you feel, and I'm just talking generally, why do you guys feel like when you're resigning you have to do it in person? Why? Especially because this young lady said her she's never requested an in-person meeting before. So it's very obvious if you've never requested an in-person meeting before and you suddenly ask for one. Like, of course your manager knows you want to resign. But my question has to start with, because when she was asking me this question, I couldn't then ask her, why did you ask for an in-person? Because she's already done it. But I want to use this as an opportunity, as a learning lesson for everybody listening. Because there is nothing in your employment contract that says when you resign you have to do it in person. What it says is that you need to do it in writing. So if you do it in writing, send it via email. If you're a remote worker, send it via email. If you've decided I'm resigning and it's like 12 o'clock at night, you want to send it via email, send it via email. There is no prerequisite that requires you to do it in person. And also bear in mind, this now manager is sick. So if you were planning to resign and work a certain notice so that you can have a break, you've now eaten into that time. Because now you've been delayed by a day. But you delayed yourself. It's not the manager's cough. It's you thinking that you owe them in person. So that's your first mistake. And also, you know that managers talk. So she is going to try and bide herself some time. That's what that man. Because as far as I'm concerned, if this is a shock to her, she's now thinking of all the work that she's going to have to do with HR to find budget, which obviously there's budget there because you're resigning, but then do an advert, interview. All of that is an investment of time and money, and no manager wants to do that in December, by the way. So I replied to her and I said, "Hi," and I said her name obviously. You need to trust yourself and your spirit and do what you feel is the right thing to do and protect yourself. Use what I teach in the podcast weekly to make that decision. Now, the reason I replied in that way is she's already told me that, and let me read it where she said it, that something feels off. That is your spirit talking to you. But I wish the spirit spoke to you at the time in which you was about to request an in-person meeting. But do you know what? We live and we learn, right? So then she said, many thanks for your advice as always. I insisted on a meeting and resigned. So you've set the tone. You set the tone. You insisted on a meeting. So even when they're dodging you, you still insisted. Why? You should have just sent the email. But it's not for me to tell you what to do. And this is why I said, you listen to the podcast. So I've given you the tools. And I need you to now, because also as well, when she's emailing me this, remember, I'm working. And my assistant has said to me, Toya, something's come in the mailbox. Can you quickly look? So I don't have the time to sit there. And this is why I developed this podcast. It doesn't last 24 hours. It's here for you to come back and listen as many times as you want. This is why I've not restricted my masterclass, you know. Once you buy it, you can listen to it 1,000 times. I haven't restricted the amount of listens because I recognise that the world of work is a 24-hour thing. If we're not thinking about it, we're actually at work. If we're not at work, we're planning for a new job. So the world of work is still evolving and growing. But you insisting on a meeting, it's almost like the ancestors were telling you something's off. But you didn't lean into what the ancestors were telling you. Because had you done that, you would have just sent it via email. You insisting a meeting can be inferred that you are forcing the matter. And there's more than one way to force a matter without physically forcing a matter. So around the same time this young lady emailed me, somebody had emailed me and requesting me to reply, and the person wrote in capitals, and I dragged the person. And this young lady, she was a bit worried because she thought maybe it was her I was referring to, and it wasn't. This young lady is actually really sweet. She's always so polite. So, you know, so for me, it was easy for me to respond. But I wish she listened to her gut. You see, second guessing ourselves also comes from a place of the unknown. Yeah, and I'm wanting to do the right thing. But there is something to be said about when your gut is telling you something, weighing up your options and thinking, what would Toya do? Because this is what I hear all the time. And if you want to know what I would do, listen to the podcast. Like, don't listen to respond. Listen to learn. In the episodes, listen, I bring my full self. Good, bad, and in between. Even when I've made mistakes, I tell you so that you can be better than me. So if that is the case, then you need to now develop a relationship with your gut, with your inner self. You have to, because I can tell that you haven't developed that relationship. Because had you developed that relationship, I think, honestly, you wouldn't have insisted for a meeting. But it wasn't my place to tell you that. Because I told you, trust your gut. Trust yourself. What if you know something feels off? They've dodging meeting. What's the next best thing? It's an email. And resign. So she then emailed me yesterday, and then I couldn't respond to her properly, but I will tell you what my response is, and then I'm going to give an overall advice about this dilemma. Hi Toya, I hope you're having a relaxing weekend. I heeded your advice of trusting my gut in your last email. However, I would really appreciate your views on the below if possible. You didn't trust your gut. Because your gut told you something was off. And you didn't respond to your gut. You still continued on the trajectory. You still were continuing. Your gut told you something was off, but you still continued like something was on. As advised previously, I handed in my resignation on Wednesday in person, and following that, I sent an email to my manager and my HR representative confirming that following my conversation with my manager, I'll be resigning and would like to request that my last day is on the 31st of January 2021. So you handed in your resignation in person only to send an email about resigning again. So, you know what? Yeah, some of us do too much. You know, sometimes we overcomplicate our situations. This is why I say we need to take accountability for sometimes making situations difficult for ourselves, because we some of us come from a place of wanting to be accepted or feeling like you owe someone something. Listen, I've told you, you are the architect of your own career. So the only person you owe anything to is yourself. For me, every decision I've made in my career has been for the benefit and the flourishing of my career. I don't owe any manager anything. Even my boss now, Deborah. Listen, I've got so much respect for this woman. Like, the respect level is plenty. But when it's time for me to go, don't get it twisted. I'm leaving. I will give you a robust handover. I will give you a recommendation of who in the team I think can now manage what I have set up. I will tell you where the risks are. I will prepare you. But when my career calling is calling me to a higher level, don't ever think in your life that I'm coming to the office to do what? Where there's DPD, I can come and tell them to come and collect laptop. I'm not leaving my house. Why do we feel the need to do too much? Also, when I informed my manager of my resignation in person, I advised that I would like to work 2 months' notice. The contractual period is 3 months. However, it is rare that someone works a full 3 months' notice. He said he would have to get back to me on it, as he will need to ensure that he gets someone new in, as if I leave before someone new starts, he will be alone. So let me get this right. He is serving his own interest, but you weren't serving yours. It is not in his interest for you to work less than your contractual 3 months. He's thinking about himself. But God was giving you sign, because your gut was speaking to you, but you placed yourself in this position. You see, whenever I resign, I need to find some of my old resignations and read it to you. Don't worry, I'll dig for it. Maybe in the new year I'll read some to you. My resignations are jokes. They're funny. Do you know why? Because you will think that I swallowed my contract. You will think that I swallowed professionalism. And you will think that, this one, let's just give her what she wants, without me having to be anything other than professional. When you are given a resignation, it is not even up to a paragraph. It's a few lines. It's a few lines. Hi, Jim. Thank you so much for the opportunity working here. However, as per my contract, I am putting in writing my intention to resign effective from today's date. I am therefore providing 2 months' notice, and therefore my last day will be on XYZ date. I note that within my contract, the notice period is 3 months. However, I'm unable to work the full 3 months. I note also that many people who have resigned have not worked the full 3 months. And therefore, I would expect some pragmatism and compromise in the notice period. I'm unable to work 3 months. You don't even have to give the reason. And that's it. Let me tell you something. Organizations are trying to replace you. They're not trying to sue you. I've not heard of an organisation suing someone for working one less month than their contracted month. I'm not telling you to go and breach your contract, but you should know the lay of the land. And it's also how you come across. You understand? You need to be forthright. You need to be authoritative, and you need to be clear what you're doing, what you want, and the outcome. Simple. Using my intuition, I don't believe my manager will make this a simple process. Listen, it's not your intuition that's speaking to you. This wasn't going to be a simple process from early, when you wanted an in-person meeting and your gut was talking to you. That was your intuition. Your intuition hasn't started here, honey. What is happening here is fact. He's just said that he needs to find someone to replace you, or he'll be alone. That tells me that until he finds someone, he wants you to work the 3 months. You placed yourself in that situation. Using my intuition, I don't believe my manager will make this a simple process for me, and I think they have taken personal offence to my planned departure. Oh, really? I would be fine with the 3 months notice. However, I'm aware that the last individual who occupied my role left 2 months before I had started. But that's none of your business. What's that got to do with what we're doing here? What's that got to do with anything? That is not your defence. Whether the last person that worked there or the person you replaced, that is superfluous. What is that got to do with anything? That's by the by. Why are you even reminding him of the person that left that you replaced? Because you don't know the conditions in which they left. And one of the months, January, is the busiest month of the year. Also, I'm due to start my new role in mid-February. Can I be forced to work longer than the 31st of January? Well, no one can force you to do anything. And I don't think that's the actual question you're asking me. What you're saying is, are you contractually bound to work the full 3 months? And the answer is, on the basis of the contract, yes. Now, will they sue you for only giving them 2 months? No, they will not. And I'll tell you why. The cost of suing you for the extra month is not worth it. It's not financially worth it for the amount of money they'd have to invest in suing you. Like, they're not going to do it. Take it from Auntie T. They ain't doing it. I find it hard to believe that if they had set precedent of previous people not working, then why would they make you do it? For me, if the precedent is that nobody works a full 3 months, but for me, they're doing it, I will see it as punitive, and I will have to question whether you're doing it because of my race, my gender. I would have to question, is this a personal vendetta? So they wouldn't even want to go down that route. But you place yourself in the situation to be even asking me this question. You did it. So I went back to her, and so I was out at the time I received this. So I messaged her and I said, hi, I'll reply in full tomorrow, but be rest assured you cannot be forced to work the full 3 months. They need you more than you need them. From now on, can you share the emails you propose to send to them before you send them? This will be a matter of chess, and it's a chess game of ego, professionalism, and knowing your rights and being firm. It continued to bother me, and I thought, let me just kind of like send another email to her. So I said, P.S. Do not tell them about your need to start your new job on a specific date as the reason you want to work till the end of January. From the time you resigned, they, and I wrote they in capitals, are responsible for finding your replacement. Your decision cannot be influenced or guided by their staffing issues. Do not email them asking them to acknowledge your email, because that's another thing. So she sent her, obviously, emailed the resignation to HR and her boss, and they haven't acknowledged her email. You have sent your resignation. The rest is up to them. Stop looking for acknowledgement. Their silence is loud. That tells me they will make things awkward because they lack the professionalism to manage this properly. People resign every day. It's not your father's business. This is your decision and you have made it. Every correspondence must now be in writing and none of these side chats. Toya. So I just want to make something clear to everybody. Number one, I will do a resignation template, because I feel like some of you need that. So let me write that as an action for me to take away from this podcast. Yeah, we're doing meeting. You need action. Yeah. So let me, resignation template. So maybe that's the masterclass, isn't it? Yeah. That's the masterclass. You guys are really going to keep me busy over this Christmas, because I'm going to be recording some new masterclasses for the new year. And of course, you guys know we have the remote masterclass that I'm going to be launching and selling tickets for in the coming weeks. So keep your eyes peeled. Anyway, so first and foremost, I've already, as I've read this dilemma, I've kind of told you where this young lady has gone wrong. You're not asking permission to resign. You are resigning. And some of you need to develop the confidence in understanding that you have made the decision that your relationship with this organisation is coming to an end. Now, there is a contract that governs your relationship. That's your employment contract. You've read it and you've seen that you have to give 3 months notice. Yeah? Now, places I've worked before, I was a consultant. It was about 3 months as well. In my current consulting contract, my resignation it was 1 month. Because of my how senior I am and the projects I work on, it was on 1 month. Now this is typically quite long for a contractor because we're not perm, so we don't have this. Now, as I have had my contract extended and I've been negotiating higher rate, they've requested even more notice. So I've given them 3 months. Now, no one in my organisation works their full notice. It doesn't happen here. When I resigned last year, do you remember when I resigned? I was only giving her like 6 weeks notice, if that. So there is no such thing as people doing that as a precedent. But the reality is, whether people work it or not, it's still in my contract, and I'm contractually bound by the terms of my contract. Now, when I resigned last year, I put it in writing and I sent it. And then I put in a meeting in my boss's diary. When she came to the meeting, I said, have you read my resignation? She said, yeah. Now, I didn't ask her to acknowledge receipt. You don't have to acknowledge receipt. When I send emails, there's a read receipt. Even if there's not a read receipt, it's in my sent items. That means it's been sent to you. Whether you open it or not is a matter for you. But so far as I've sent it, that is it. Then when I had the meeting, I said to her, I know my consulting contract is 3 months. However, I'm not an employee, I'm a consultant. And I know that nobody works the full 3 months. However, what I will say is, because of the value of my contracts and because of the role I play within the team, I'm willing to provide 6 months. Now, we negotiated 6 months, 6 weeks. We negotiated because at first I only wanted to give her 4 weeks. But an extra 2 weeks worked for me. That's professional negotiation. Do you understand? No one's going to sue you. Anyway, I ended up staying, right? Now, this young lady, this is what I'm going to advise you, because I'm going to message you and ask you to listen to this episode. Because more than anything, there's learning lessons here that you need to learn. And I'm hoping you're going to learn them. Now, remember, I didn't just wake up one day knowing how to resign. I had some bad resignations, but a lot of them came from how I handled it. Because I was professionally immature. That made me unprofessional. Sometimes my resignation would be, I'd literally resign on Monday. Maybe I've got 1 month notice. I'll resign on Monday and I tell them my last day's on Friday. I used to do shit like that until I realised integrity, reputation, actually let me be pragmatic in my approach, because there's still something to be said about, you know, giving them an opportunity to actually assimilate the information that I'm leaving and start to put in plans to further their business. Now, whether they put those plans in is up to them, but I need to at least give them an opportunity. And I will say that, you know, the industry is small. You never know when you're going to meet somebody, but equally, it's about my own conscience and how I operate. So I never work full notices. I'm just letting you know. I have never in my career ever worked full notices because it doesn't fit. It don't suit me. I have compromised. But it requires the other side to be mature enough to come to the table. Now, when you ask people permission, you give people the opportunity to say yes or no. When you tell people, then what you're doing is encouraging them to then come to the table with negotiation because they know where you stand. Do you understand? This young lady basically said, oh, can I resign? Can I make my last day on the 31st of January? Well, no. There is an option to say no. What you should have done is said, this is going to be my last day. I acknowledge that my contract says 3 months. However, I can only work this. Why can you only work it? For personal reasons. Full stop. Why as black women do we feel that we have to explain ourselves? We do. We feel that way. Because you know why? Because we always feel like we owe people something. That's why. That's where it comes from. It comes from a place of owing. It comes from a place of uncertainty. That's what we feel. Listen, you know, Oyubo people, I've told you guys, start observing how they move. Start observing how they move. When they're ready to leave, some of them don't even resign. You won't see them again. They'll just disappear off the face of the earth. Like that. No, not us. we'll say to them, do you mind if I resign on so-and-so date? Would you mind responding? And if they don't respond, you'll email them and say, excuse me, I sent you a resignation on so-and-so date. You haven't acknowledged it. Listen, in your contract, it doesn't say as a stipulation of resignation that the other side have to acknowledge it. That is not a term. If it is a term in your contract that your resignation has to be acknowledged, make sure when you send your resignation that you put a read receipt. So if it means you have to send it twice so that the second time is a read receipt, the read receipt tells you who read it, when it was open at the time, isn't it? Listen, technology has moved on because it realized people are stupid. People will deliberately read your email and not respond. So Outlook and Microsoft decided to do read receipt. Use it. Become familiar. Some of you are doing, keyboard warrior. Some of you don't even know how to use Outlook. How about that? Anyway, back to our queen here. So she's waiting for my response. And my response is in this podcast where I'm going to tell you this. I want you to continue working as if your last day is going to be the 31st of January, because your last day will be the 31st of January, because you need to be firm that that's what the day you want. If it takes them 2 weeks to acknowledge, that's up to you. That's up to them. But this is what I'm going to say. In January, I would send them an email and say, further to my resignation, I would just like to list the handover I will be preparing, as mentioned in my resignation, that my last day is the 31st of January. And I will do a handover document, I will do this, I will write it down there. Make it look, juicy, so it looks like you're doing a lot. Please confirm to me if you would like a face-to-face handover and what date would best suit. Full stop. Oh, no, sorry. Your last day can't be because of so-and-so. You say, sorry, further to my resignation, I was clear that my last day was on this date. You didn't acknowledge my email, and that's fine. However, this is what I've told you. You need to be firm. They're going to make things awkward. You're going to keep things professional. They're going to try to frustrate you. You're going to be professional. Do you know why? Because you have to learn from this situation because you didn't handle it properly. So you have to almost take the learning lesson out of the awkwardness so you don't find yourself in this situation again. So that when you move on and you elevate to your new job, and then God has now prepared an even greater elevation and you have to resign from the new job, you will close your eyes and remember when you didn't resign properly in the previous one, and then you will move accordingly. Do you understand? You'll move proper jejely. That is how I would deal with this. So after listening to this episode, if you want to draft something and you want me to have a look at it, please, that's fine. But keep it one paragraph. We don't need a story of Mary had a little lamb. We don't need that story. We need just couple lines. One paragraph. Yeah? I think it's great that this queen, number one, we have to celebrate new job. New job, new glory, new year. 2022 has started early for everybody. Yeah? And I love the fact that this queen, number one, is honest in her vulnerability and being honest, because it enables me to help you the best way I can. Equally, I think we all need to learn from this, that you don't ask permission to resign. And I think part of it came from your gut was telling you that even if you resigned and gave them the full 3 months notice, you knew that they would always make it awkward because they've taken your resignation personally. How dare you, Black Queen, leave? How dare you, Black Queen, want more for yourself? How dare you, Black Queen, think you can leave this organization? Who are you? That's how they see this. Every time I've left somewhere, I always get an attitude. I don't care. Kiss my bum. I don't give a shit. Do you know why I don't care? Because I'm not leaving for any other reason than for progression. So if you're not happy for me, that means you don't want me to be great. You don't want me to progress. If you do not want me to progress, are you an enemy? No problem. I'll keep my eye on you. Listen, depending on how people would handle my resignation would depend how beefy the handover is. Listen, handover is not a contractual obligation, by the way. There's no contractual obligation to give anybody handover. Go and look in your contract. It's not there. So any handover you're doing is out of the goodness of your professionalism. If they make things awkward, you can even say that. I have tried to work with you so that we can do a seamless handover. However, you have been unwilling to meet me halfway. Therefore, my last day will be on so-and-so day. You wouldn't even tell them you're not doing handover again. You would just reinforce the last day. That goes to show that I don't have to. And you don't. There is no legal or contractual requirement for anybody to give a handover. Let's be clear. We give handovers because of last week's episode. Integrity. That's why we do it. We give handover because we want to feel like we've done a good job. I've worked in places that didn't get handover. The handover was an email on the last day to say, these are the things that somebody has to pick up on Monday. Because they treated me so badly. I say, yeah, no problem. No problem. I will have the last laugh. As I've matured, I've definitely recognized that you do me, I do you. You treat me well, I treat you well. I've learnt how to do skeleton handover. You know what a skeleton handover is? There's no flesh there, just bones. I know how to do that one. I also know how to give beefy handover. That is all the flesh, the bones you can't see. It's nice and juicy. New person start on Monday, able to start on a clean slate. I also know how to give the type of handover, yeah, where the escalation will come 9 o'clock on Monday when I've already left. I know how to give that type of handover. Decide on the handover you want to give depending on how they treat you. Do you understand? We need to be confident. Now, this young queen, maybe you're worrying or wondering, oh my God, if I don't work the 3 months, maybe they're going to give me a bad reference for this new job I'm going to. I've told you guys before, I've said it in one of the masterclasses, no organisation is going to give you a bad reference because many organisations have been sued for defamation of character, which has resulted in a rescinding of a job offer. So no organisation wants to put themselves in that position. In fact, what you believe is a reference is not the conventional reference that we used to have. References nowadays are called standard references. Standard references are the name of the person, the job title, how long they were there. Maybe sometimes they might ask how many sick days, and that's it. Can you confirm that this person used to work in your organisation? It's standard. Nobody's talking about subjective things like how do they perform their job. No one's really, not really, no one is asking that on a reference. And if you see a standard reference, usually in a standard reference, they say it. The company that are asking for the reference will say, we reserve the right to share the content of this with the applicant or the person who we are seeking a reference for. And the reason for that is, if organizations then try to force something in and you ask for full disclosure, you're then able to use that reference as a basis to sue an organization for defamation of character. No organization is doing that. Now, if the reference was on the phone, that's different, right? Because it's their word against the other person. But most references are in writing and they want it to be in writing. So let us not worry about the reference. That is the least of your worries, if you want me to be honest. And I've worked in places before whereby organizations who are not happy that I'm leaving, when I've left, even when I've left, the organisation I've gone to said, oh, we've been chasing your old place for reference. They haven't given. I said, yeah, because they were upset that I was leaving. They took it quite personally. I've said it before. Yeah, I've said it to the new place. And then I have put in writing to the old place that they're compromising my new job by deliberately and willfully omitting and deliberately delaying providing a standard reference. That you take it as a personal attack on your progress. Yeah, that's how I wrote it down. I take it as a personal attack on my progress. Within half an hour, the standard reference arrived. HR said, oh, what did you do? It's like you waved the magic wand. Yeah, I waved the wand of knowing my rights. That's how I got it. Do you understand? So let us have confidence in our new elevation. God has placed you in a new job. Why are you still second guessing the one that you're trying to leave? It's because you know that they're bad mind. It's because you know they're going to make things difficult for you. So what do? If you know these things, knowledge is power, then you have to then know how to navigate these people. And you have leverage. Your knowledge is leverage because your boss cannot train the new person or any person coming more than you. Your boss can't do a handover more than you. So who has the leverage here? Is it not you? You will see, usually a week before you leave a place, they'll start panicking. Suddenly, they will say your name like a song and a lullaby because they realise you've got them by the cojones. If she leaves tomorrow, shit, something could get dropped. You see their attitude changing. So you need to see yourself in a great position when you resign, a position of leverage. What is leverage? It's strength. What is the strength in leverage? Is the bargaining strength. And your bargaining tool, that leverage that you have, is going to secure your last day as the 31st. So as I have asked you, please listen to this episode. Then, if you get an email from them, because they will email you, because they're not going to place themselves in a position where they keep quiet up until a week before the 31st, because your boss can't risk you leaving without transfer of knowledge. But that knowledge transfer is not a legal obligation. But they won't put themselves in that position. And if they do, they're stupid. But I can tell that they won't, because he's already said that he doesn't know if you can leave early because they need to get someone new. As if you leave before someone starts, he'll be on his own. So what he's hoping will happen is there'll be a handover. So he's already told you what he's hoping is going to happen. So therefore, there is no way they're going to ignore your email indefinitely. They can't risk that. Equally, you're still working there. As of today's date, you're still working there. And this is only December. So we're talking more than 6 weeks. Come on. So yes, my dear, when they do acknowledge your email, please get in contact with me. I will draft a response for you. Because I feel as though we need to kind of, we need to do a UE. And we need to change the tone of your responses to them so that it is direct, so it is intentional, so it is clear. Whereas now, it isn't. Oh, can I make my last day this day? Can I? We need to stop asking Oyibo people permission for us to be professional and elevate to the next level. I don't ask Oyibo people if they can give me permission to be great or to elevate. No, I don't. And let's not start here. I get it. When you're resigning, sometimes they make it awkward. I've worked in places before where I've resigned and they just ignore me. They just ignore me. They just, some of them don't even give you eye contact. I've been there. I've got stories for days. How about one that they ignored me? They even had like a meal. They didn't invite me. My boss said this because they're talking about they may be talking about commercially sensitive things, and since I'm leaving, they don't want to leave themselves exposed. What? But this same pig is asking for handover. You're not gonna get it. You're gonna get skeleton one, innit? Yeah, and that's what she got. And she goes, "Is there anything else you need me to know? Apart from you being a dickhead?" No, nothing. Anyway. Anyway, I wanted to bring that dilemma to the episode because I felt that you guys could benefit from it. Also as well, I know I've spoken about resignations as well, but this particular one is quite important because in order for me to help this queen, I had to also talk about where she went wrong. But equally, that's what I'm here for, and I'm going to help her and I'm going to support her, and hopefully we will work together to get the result that she wants. Now, I do have to say as well, if you're not on my social media, what are you doing? What are you doing? Hello! I'm very active on Instagram, So if you do not know my Instagram handle, let me give it to you. Toya_Washington. TOYA_WASHINGTON. Go and follow me, please. And then, of course, we have the Toya Talks podcast Instagram, Toya_Talks. I'm also on TikTok, Toya Washington, all one word. And, of course, Snapchat, the birthplace of Toya Talks. The handle is Toya Washington. And of course, I am on Twitter, Toya_W with the hashtag Toya Talks or Toya Talks podcasts. If you are interested in any of the masterclasses, please go ahead and visit my website, www.toyatalks.com. And there houses all the masterclasses. The CV masterclass, negotiation masterclass, interview skills masterclass. We also have the redundancy masterclass and the mother and daughter masterclass. And I'm going to be adding 2 new masterclasses, and I've been meaning to do it. I just haven't had the time. But over the Christmas period, I will be recording 2 masterclasses, and one of which I have taken away as the resignation masterclass, including a template. Now, what you will find is in the CV masterclass, I'm actually giving away 2 templates, but you have to have purchased the CV masterclass in order to get the templates. And what you would do is you would email with your receipt number, so that we can check obviously the receipt number corresponds with the purchase of the masterclass, and then we would give you 2 templates of CVs that you could use and fill out, obviously, and make it tailored towards, you know, your experience and what you would like to capture in the CV masterclass. Because I feel like what you'd like to capture on your CV, because I feel like some people don't know where to start with CVs. You know, I know somebody who was unemployed for a significant amount of time, and her CV was really bad. She accessed the CV masterclass, used one of the templates, and within a week she was getting interviews. A week after that she had a job offer. Because when it comes to CVs, I know exactly how to tailor a CV. I know what should be included in a CV, irrespective of the sector you work in. Now, I want to make clear, the Toya Talks podcast and platform is not just for people who work in the corporate working space. I don't work in corporate. I haven't always worked in corporate. I've had maybe 3 corporate roles, and everything else has been other private organisations, public sector, charity sector, third sector. So I've worked in most of, if not all, the sectors. And therefore, the Toya Talks podcast and platform is for everybody who works, who is a black woman. That's who I centre. And then it's everybody else. So, go ahead, go on the website, have a look at the masterclasses. Also, as well, I wanted to let you know that in January, I will be doing a remote masterclass on employment contracts, and I will cover resignations as part of that too, but from the point of what your obligations are underneath your contract based on resignations from that perspective. So I've made a note of that. Also, if you guys have not been following me on socials, you wouldn't know that obviously I have rebranded my YouTube channel, which is now known as At Home with Toya. And also as well, I made live 2 vlogs that I had recorded. Now, I've been recording since July of this year, so 2021. And I've really enjoyed that process of retrospective vlogging. But equally, I have to be kind to myself in that whilst I would love to upload every week, I'm actually going to be uploading bi-weekly, because that is what I feel like I can manage, given that I have a brand new episode of the Toya Talks podcast every week. And I think that for me, it's also understanding what I'm able to do. And I'm not ever going to compromise this podcast. This podcast is every Tuesday, every week. And if there is a time that I can't do it, I'll let you know on my socials. And that's one of the reasons also I give you my social media handles, because I am very active. And if I'm unable to do a podcast, I'll let you know. And I think that's only happened once this year, where I was unable to do one. But yeah, that's kind of where I am in terms of the vlogs. And I do want to mention as well, like, for me, it has been a big step to be able to, 1, return to vlogging, but 2, actually upload. I had really bad anxiety, and I think it came from, number 1, the fact that YouTube has changed so much, but I think also as well, there's another step in the vulnerability, in opening up my life a little bit more. And those who know me know I am an extremely private person. And whilst I am on social media and I do have the podcast, I still manage to kind of keep my personal life quite separate in a very comfortable way. Whereas I feel like with vlogging, I now have to open up a little bit more. You know, I'm going to be talking about my life. Like, you're going to see my life, and I have started doing that. You're going to see my businesses, how I operate in my businesses. You're going to see, like, people who work for me. So my assistant works for me. And you'll hear her. You probably won't see her because she doesn't actually want to be in the vlogs, which I respect. You're going to see my tribe. The people that hold me down. My very, very close friends. You're going to see people in the vlog that means so much to me. You're also going to see parts of my life that never actually make it on Instagram. You're going to see a lot of, like, ventures and business ventures. I'm going to take you on there. You might even meet my lawyer as well. And you might even meet my accountant. Actually, not even might. You're going to meet my accountant. He's in one of the vlogs as well. But you may see part of his face. I'm not going to show all of him, because again, he's a private person. But these people make up who I am as a person. They make up my business. And I want to show you that side of my life. I want to show you guys, like, how I live my life at home and all the things in between. Like, and it's funny. And I say funny insofar as I didn't realise I was such a clown. But clearly, I'm a clown, like times 2. And you guys get to see that. So if you are interested in watching the vlogs, then go ahead onto YouTube. I will leave a link in the summary to this podcast episode, because I've heard that some people have found it a bit hard to find my YouTube channel. So if you write Toya Washington, you will see it. But it is called At Home with Toya. And I think as the algorithms start to pick up the flow of traffic to the YouTube channel, it will then be easy to find in the search bar. So make sure you go ahead, subscribe, share and listen and watch the vlogs. And I've upgraded my equipment as well, which I'm really excited about. So I'm using the new Sony ZV-1. It's an amazing camera, absolutely phenomenal. I've got all my ring lights, I've got my tripods. I'm also going to show you like some fashion videos, because everyone says I'm very stylish. I say everyone, but me too. I'm everybody too. I think I'm stylish. I'm going to show you my clothes, like where I get my clothes from. I'm a trainer nerd. I'm a handbag nerd. I love a designer handbag. You'll see all of that. So it's for me getting comfortable with showing you that part of my life and different facets of my life. And yeah, and you're going to see me doing public speaking events, me doing collaborations and working on stuff. I have an episode of the Toya Talks podcast coming up, which is, I've got a special guest in it, which is amazing. And the guest will make sense as well when you hear it. But yeah, there's so many great things as well happening in 2022. And you guys get to see it. I'm so excited. And also it's forcing me to also kind of freshen up and on my editing skills from a video editing perspective, because obviously I used to do YouTube before and I'm self-taught. I love learning new skills, but something has to be said at the fact that I am very hard on myself. I am my hardest critic, and I have had a lot of frustrations with YouTube, and I do talk about it on one of my vlogs. But equally as well, I learned how to mix and master my own podcast episode. I need to give myself grace to learn to be an even greater video editor. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And yeah, that's it really. I'm just so happy that I'm able to deliver this episode to you, as I do each and every Tuesday. And I always say, and I will continue to say it, whoever needs to hear this, please receive it and open your heart to it. There is an episode I want to record as well about loneliness. And there's 2 people that have approached me about a couple of questions in relation to loneliness, and I think it's important that I talk about it and also show a different perspective to loneliness as well, because for several years I was very lonely, but I definitely understand that I had to sit in that loneliness to be the person I am today, who is self-assured, who is confident, who can take myself to the cinema by myself. Yeah, I used to do that. I used to go to New York by myself for several years before I invited Lisa to be coming with me, and how I actually dealt with the loneliness and why I was lonely. Why was I lonely? Because what people don't understand is I have a family, but I always felt lonely even within my family. And I felt very seen by my dad and less lonely when my dad was there. But when he died, I felt very, very on my own. And I think I want to talk about that too, because I left home at 21. So if I didn't feel lonely then, I felt lonely when I was living by myself. Yeah, so I want to talk about that as well, and loneliness in terms of work as well, of course, because sometimes it can be often very lonely at work, whether you see people who look like you or not, and how one goes about dealing with that. So that is an episode that is loading. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to ask each and every one of you to please share the podcast, share episodes of the podcast. I would, if it wasn't for you guys, I would not be in a situation where I'll be celebrating the 100th episode as I did last week. The January the 1st is 2 years of the Toya Talks podcast, and the highest charting position is number 9 in the careers section, and the highest charting in the business section was number 30. Absolutely brilliant, absolutely amazing, and all because you guys have steadily been going on this journey with me, and you guys have been my biggest cheerleaders, and you guys have shared and introduced people to the platform and the podcast. I would not have been able to do it without you guys, and I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. For all new listeners, welcome to the journey. Please acquaint yourself with all the episodes. This is 101. Oh my god, Danny, we made it. Anyway, listen, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to thank each and every one of you for joining me. Make sure you have a great week. As we move into the festive periods, please be careful. Please take care of yourself. Please be focused on what it is that you're trying to achieve by the end of the year, and let's also start thinking about 2022. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining. Thank you for supporting. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.